Yeah. Hi, this is Rethik, your biology subject matter expert from MemoNeet. And today in this video, a kind of a revision video where I'll be discussing about the chapter that is Principle of Inheritance and Variations. So the major thing that I'm going to discuss in this video is about the Mendel's law of inheritance. So what is Mendel's law of inheritance and what all the things, that he has proposed under his law. So in what basis he have proposed the law. So that is what is very curious. Like say, nothing but you have seen an offsprings, obviously, that is the younger one, the whatever the organisms, right? So always they are identical to their parents or they show slightly differences in their characters. But almost you can see that they are very similar or identical to their parents. The offsprings are identical to their parents, right? So in that way, if I just need to define something, then what I can define is say like if you have seen this figure that is mango, obviously once the mango seed, right, once it undergoes the germination then plant to the tree, obviously that tree of the mango will be resembling its parent one, not the neem tree or some banyan tree. So same thing in animals, almost the all the living organisms, completely or somewhat partially they do show kind of a similarities with their parent. So that is what. So why is this happening and what, how? That is what we are going to study. So in that way, there are a separate branch that comes, which is actually called as the genetics. So what do you mean by genetics then? It is a branch that normally deals with one specific thing that is actually called as inheritance, as well as the variations of the characteristics from parents to their offspring. So that is the variations of that characteristics, how the variation has been produced. That is one thing. Then another thing that we are going to concentrate more is on inheritance. Then what is this inheritance defines? Inheritance is actually a process by which the characters are passed from parents to their progeny, that is parents to their offspring. Say like you look similar to your grandmother or grandfather. Hey, you are somewhat familiar or similar, just like your father, just like your mother. So how this comparison is happening? Because the characters are being passed from your parents to you, like from the parents to their progeny. So that is a kind of a base of hereditary characteristics. Okay. Hereditary characteristics is nothing but hereditary, that whatever the parents or your grandparents had. So that has been passed from generation to generation to you, and it will be passing to your next generation. That is what. And here also comes a degree that is called as variations. So what do you mean by variation then? It is a degree by which the progeny differs from the parent. Like you in human beings, as you can see that I'll be partially, somewhat, will be familiar with my parents, not completely. I'll be somewhat familiar with my brother, not completely. Even though, even though we do share the same ancestors, even do me and my brother sister, whatever it is, we share the same parents, but we do not resemble completely like our parents, but we do resemble somewhat just like human beings, right? So how is it possible? It is through the variations. So variation is the degree by which progeny differs from their parents. Cool. So based on this, one thing was very clear, that the variation are hidden in sexual reproduction. So how you are been able to see variation? So variations are always seen in sexual reproduction cases. So if the offspring which has been generated is through the sexual reproduction, then only we are able to see the variation. And this is the very important top, point that we need to keep in our mind. So the next thing is in 19th century, as you can see that the Mendel, he conducted a series of experiment to study the inheritance pattern. Okay, on he took garden pea plant as an experimental model here. So for several years, why did he took or why did he choose this garden pea plant? Because it was easily available and you can see that a kind of characters can be studied, how it has been passing from one generation to another generation. and you just required a kind of setup, a land or a setup so that you can work on it initially. And pollination was very easy. So those are the major reasons why Mendel chose the garden pea plant as an experimental model to study up this experiment. So it initially went for 7 years. That is what they say according to your new textbook. But according to the old textbook, they say something 8, 9, it differs, but just concentrate, it was actually 7 years like the experiment took place. And say like 1856 to 1863, so obviously 7 years happened with this experiment. And finally he proposed a very important law that is actually called as Mendel's law, which we now call it as law of what do you say that law of inheritance in living organism. So one thing was very similar, that while proposing this law, he considered two things. One is statistical analysis, and another one thing was mathematical analysis. So these are the two things. He combined it, and very first time in the biology, these two things were applied. So now it was very complicated. Like, see, in biology, basically we go through the theory things, not the mathematical equations or statistical analysis and all was nowhere introduced in the 19th century. So he was the very first person who used this mathematics and stats, to analyze the result. So this became very confusing to the scientists over that period. So to understand what exactly the Mendel is trying to say, so that could be the one reason why the Mendel's proposed experiments, it could not be understood by the biologist over that period of time. So that was the reason why the work was hidden or unrecognized. And second thing is, during that period, even they say that Darwin's theory was also proposed, and everyone were curious regarding the evolutionary theory. Oh my god, like, oh, this is how the evolution is happening, okay, this is how it got happened. So everyone were very curious, and nobody had time, or even no one thought of like what exactly this proposed theory is all about, law of inheritance is all about anyhow. But he got a very good result because one thing is his experiment has a large sampling size, as he took this and he worked for 7 years, so the accuracy rate was very good. The second thing is he conducted an artificial pollination, can I call it as cross pollination, with the desired characteristics or whatever the characteristics he wanted. So he crossed with that plant, and he absorbed the result. Okay, later on he do absorb the result. So he chose a class of like 14 true breed pea plants. Say like these are the characteristics, and these are the contrasting traits that you are be seeing. Like, if you consider a stem height, so two types of characters were observed. One is tallness and draftness, same like flower color, whether it was violet or white. Then its position, flower position, whether it is an axial region or terminal region. So pod shape, pod color, seed color, in that way 14 characters were being taken. Okay, he chose 14 true breeding pea plants varieties for his experiment. And one of the example that I can take by giving like what experiment he did is inheritance of one gene. Inheritance of one gene. So what actually happened in inheritance of one gene is he have chosen a parental pea plant, wherein the generation he actually crossed one of the plant which was tall, and the another one was draft plant. He crossed it. As a result, in F1 generation, all the plants were tall in size. Okay, in F1 generation, as a result, all were tall in their character, right? So after this F1 generation, this whatever the result he got, right? So those were self-pollinated. Selfing is nothing but self-pollinated. Say like this tall plant and this tall plant, they were being pollinated with each other, self-pollinated. And as a result, he absorbed an F2 generation that, okay, so out of four plant, three were tall in character and another one was draft in character. So now what we can actually observe that in characters where tall draft was is basically a character which parents had. So in F1 generation, he observed that all the F1 plant were tall. So draft is nowhere you were able to absorb draft plant. Draft character was not absorbed. But after selfing this F1 generation plant, he was able to absorb that and hidden character or the character which he did not absorb in F1 generation was expressed in F2 generation. Okay. So, what do you mean by this thing was a confusing thing? Like, so what it indicates now? So, based on that observation, Mendel proposed that something was being transferred here. Something is there which has been transferred or passing down unchanged from parents to their offspring. Okay, unchanged from their parents to offspring through the gametes, through the gametes. So he called that thing that is something which has been passing from generation to generation, from parents to their offspring, which is unseen. So he called it as factor. Okay, he called it as factors, which today we normally call that as gene or genes. Okay, so that is what. So then what exactly do you mean by genes or gene? So one thing we know is it is unit of inheritance. So I can call it as it is the unit of inheritance. So they contain an information which is required to express a particular what do you say, that trait or character. That means gene will be having an information, okay, required to express a particular trait or character. So that is what the gene is. So there comes another one thing, that is allele. Another one word will also come, alleles. Then what do you mean by alleles here? So the gene which codes for a pair of contrasting character is actually called as alleles. So gene will never be expressed singly. Okay, it will always be expressed in a pair form. Say like here you have tall plant. So say this is one gene. Okay. So tallness is what the character that gene is going to express. Now this gene, how it is going to express, not singly, but it will be having two pairs of contrasting character. Means two will be similar characters or what characters, okay, of that character. Tallness or height is the character now. So expression could be either tall or draft, but height is a character now. So one gene will be that tall height gene, which is responsible for the heightness of the plant. So it is going to express itself in pair, right? Now, these genes, the way I've been talking, so will be expressed in alphabetical manner. Like when we are writing it, denoting it in genetics, we normally express in alphabetical manner. Say like, uh, you have the tallness, right? Right. So we have what? The tallness is a gene here. Just a minute. So, as I told that the gene, right, that codes for the pair of contrasting character. So the gene actually pays for what? A contrasting character. And it has been some represented, like whenever we are writing it or whenever we are describing it, they have been always represented as, alphabetical order. Say like if it is tall T and if it is draft small t, something like that. Okay. Yes. Now, one thing that we know is, as I told, the genes codes for a pair of contrasting characters, so they will always be expressed in pair. Say like if it is tall, so it will be expressed in capital T and capital T, right? So you can call it as if both the contra characters are represented in same alphabets, that is capital T and capital T, or small t and small t, we can call it as homozygous. They're actually what? Homozygous. And if it has been represented as capital T and small t, so now what is happening? The alphabets, one is capital and the another one is small. So we can call it as heterozygous. Just like in sperms, right? Like what happens? Just like in sperms and ovum, the fertilization. So if the male, it releases X or Y chromosome. So, and the female only, you will be getting X chromosome. So if it is X and X, they are homozygous gametes. So if it is X and Y, they are heterozygous gametes, right? So same thing goes here. And this is what? Genotype. Okay. So if this is the genotype, then what will be the phenotype? The character that it is expressing, that is the tallness and draftness, right? So that will be the phenotype, something that you are inheriting it. So based on these observation, okay, so he concluded that there is something called dominant and there is something called recessive. Because as you can see in this figure, like what happened, he have choose two different plants. One has having the character with a stall plant and the another one is draft plant. So in F1 generation, he observed that all the plants were tall. But in F2 generation, he saw something different. That is, he saw three were tall and one was draft. Okay. So three were tall and one was draft. So now he realized or he analyzed that there has to be something, okay, which is actually suppressing the other characteristics. So the character which is being dominated, he named it as the dominant character, and which has been suppressed, right? So that as the recessive character. So once after selfing, he got to know, like selfing, that is F1 generation from the observation, that the parent traits is expressed in the F2 generation without any blending. So the character which was not expressed in F1 generation got expressed in the F2 generation, right? That is, the draft character was been expressed in the F2 generation, especially during, so that means it has been expressing during the meiosis process, production of the gametes, during the gametes formation in the meiosis. This is what he was able to understand. So from this Punnett square that you are been observing here, okay, we can name like dominant and recessive, because one thing you will be getting is what kind of gametes you will get: capital T, then capital T, small t, capital T, small t, and small t. So now this is the tall, this is dark. So what is this character? Even though one character has been tall and the another one is draft, but still, which character has been expressed here? The capital, sorry, the tall character has been expressed here. So that means he came to a conclusion that whenever a pair of contrasting character comes together, so the dominant character will express itself and it is going to suppress the recessive one. So here the dominant is capital T and the recessive one is small t. So what would be the phenotypic ratio? They are physical characters now. 3 is to 1 because 3 is tall and 1 is dwarf. So phenotypic ratio. What would be the genotypic ratio? So complete. 1 homozygous tall, 2 heterozygous tall, 1 homozygous dwarf. So 1 is to 2 is to 1 will be the genotypic ratio. Clear to it? So to see like how this experiment works again. Okay, just to see like how this experiment works. Again, he choose another experiment where he did a test cross. Mendel, he crossed the tall plant from the F2 generation. This is what you saw. So now another experiment, he crossed the violet color that you are seeing, okay, which is this thing, violet color, which is represented in capital W, which is where W, violet color is dominant over what? White color, which is small w. So based on his observation in F2 generation, all were violet now. Obviously, because the dominant is going to show its dominancy over the recessive one, right? So in F2 generation, all were dominant. Now, to this dominant character, what he did is, okay, dominant character, that is heterozygous condition, okay, which is in heterozygous condition. What you can see, capital W and sorry, okay, capital W and small w. So it is heterozygous condition and it is showing violet in color. So that was crossed with the recessive white, small w, to small w. So as a result, what you will be seeing, so you have two gametes here, one is capital W and the another one is small w. Obviously, you will be seeing the smaller w now. So as a result, what you are going to get, yes. So this will be the result what you are going to get now. So that is one will be the capital W and small w, and another will be capital W and again the small w. Now again the capital W and small w, the last will be the small w and small w. So that means what you are seeing here is you will see two of them, that is 50-50 ratio was observed. That is, yes, two of them were, sorry, where it is. Yeah. So capital W and capital, so yeah, W and W. So what you will be seeing is two of them are heterozygous in condition and two of them were homozygous in condition. Can you see here? So what it is in heterozygous, violet in color, right? So this is homozygous in condition, which is white in color. So that means half of the flower are now violet and half of them are white in color. So that unknown flower is heterozygous. So that means this violet color, what you're actually seeing will obviously be what? Heterozygous. So now it was clearly indicated that the dominant character will obviously it is going to express itself over the recessive one, because here it is in heterozygous condition, but still it is expressing its character over the recessive one. So where both are recessive here or both is actually the white character, so it is showing its original color, that is the white color. So this is what initially based on is this these observation, he proposed a very important two different laws were being proposed based on the observation. The first law is Mendel's law of dominance, and the second one is law of segregation. So according to Mendel's law of dominance, so we can infer that inference can be drawn that out of two contrasting character, one is dominant and the other one is recessive. Say like if it is capital T and small t, they are the two contrasting character. One is dominant and the another one is recessive, right? So what you will be saying, this that means the one character will obviously be the dominant, where capital T will be the dominant over the small t. So that is what law of dominance is all about. So that is one of the character will be the dominant and the another character will always be recessive. So the next law he proposed was law of segregation. So where he says that alleles of these traits, alleles are nothing but characters of these traits, okay, of these traits, segregates, separates while getting inherited, as we have seen in the above cross, that is on the yellow, sorry, on the violet as well as, white. So that means they get separated while they are being, getting inherited. So obviously the characters are going to get separated. So that is what he's trying to say. So that is what says about law of segregation. Alleles of these traits do segregate. Okay. So they do segregate while getting inherited, as we have seen in the above cross, which is actually the test cross. Okay. Which is the test cross. So this is all about the law of dominance and law of segregation, which was being proposed by Mendel's. So based on these law, there are again many theories that comes, many examples which actually follows Mendel's law of dominance or Mendel's law of independent assortment, law of segregation, and many laws comes. And there are even some laws which do not follow the Mendel's, principle of inheritance, and some law they do follow the Mendel's law of inheritance. So what are those law? This is what we are going to study in the coming video. So for till now, it is all about the basic introduction of Mendel's law of inheritance and what are the theories that was being proposed under this law. So yes, so for more details, you can actually contact me through the comment section, and moreover, you can also reach me out to the Telegram channel. So yeah, today will be the day where if you are still planning to, buy the Elite plan or Brahmastra test series, this is the right time because you are getting, a very good genuine offer that you might have not seen before. So that is the lowest price of Elite plan and Brahmastra test series. So if you are still planning to buy it, so go for it. So for you can just like, uh, the link is in the description, and thank you. Bye.